Hey everybody, I hope you're doing great today. I decided that I would do a video on different snakes that I think are great for families or not great for families. I've had some questions asked of me by people I know, because people know that are personal friends with me on Facebook that we have different kinds of snakes in the house. It's not just one snake that we're planning on breeding. And I've been asked, what's like the smallest snake you have, or what do you think would be a good size for a family with kids? And so today I figured I would go through some of the snakes I have and kind of talk about the pros and cons of each different one, and also my personal recommendations in the event that maybe you would like to go find a breeder on your own and get a snake from them, or maybe if you would like to get one from us one day. So stay tuned and I'm going to talk all about it. Okay guys, so the first snake we're going to be talking about today is Onyx, our baby Mexican black king snake. Okay, so this is a little bit of a little snippet of how big he is right now compared to me. He's very tiny right now. He is a few months old. He's a baby, so he will get pretty long and a little bit thicker. He'll probably get, I want to say 4 inches, 3 to 4 inches around in girth, and then he might get like 5 to 6 feet long. I forget with king snakes if it's the males or the females that actually get a little bit bigger, because a lot of snakes are actually sexually dimorphic, which means that the females, usually the females, will be bigger. So I think, if I'm correct, I think it might be male king snakes that get bigger. Someone correct me on that if I'm wrong. These will need a 40-gallon minimum enclosure when they grow up, so that's something to consider. He is already in a 20-gallon right now. You can start something like him in a 10 or a 15. He's in a 20 right now because I did want to give him some more room. He has never bitten me. Keep in mind though, he's still a baby, and king snakes still do have a really big appetite. They have a pretty good food response. He's usually hungry most of the time. So this is something to keep in mind if you're thinking about a snake for kids, especially small kids. For me, an adult, a bite from him, even when he's full grown, is not going to be that big of a deal. I have seen videos of these full grown actually try to swallow people's thumbs. There's a video, I think Nerd did a video on that. It was either on their Instagram. I think it was on their Instagram and their YouTube. I'd go check that out if you want to just see what it looks like. But they, a lot of the times they're just hungry. They're not trying to be mean. They have a huge appetite, and if you smell like anything, especially if you've got other snakes too and you smell like other snake, they can smell that and they can mistake your finger or something for food. So keep that in mind when you have kids. Like I said, he's never bitten me. In the event that they do bite you, they will hold on. A lot of times you might have to go to your sink and run some water. Like some people will do like hand sanitizer, or they'll put it in their mouth, or they'll use like Listerine, something that tastes bad to the snake, and that will get them to let go. But king snakes, along with all the other snakes I'm going to show you, I don't have anything venomous. I don't, trust me. I have my own personal opinions on personally keeping venomous snakes. I know a lot of people do it. I had my own zoo, my own reptile zoo or facility, and I've had experience with them. I would do that to have some exhibits available for people that want to learn about venomous snakes. But as far as me personally, I don't have any. I don't plan on having any. But all of the snakes I'm going to show you today, they have teeth. They do not have fangs. Basically, majority of them are constrictor. Their teeth are recurved, which is basically for holding onto their prey, and the constriction is actually what suffocates the prey. And then they, like I said, use those recurved teeth to hold onto the prey, and it helps them pull it into their mouth and down their throat so they can eat it. A lot of people say that king snakes make great beginner snakes, and I do agree with that for a lot of reasons. It's just that you have to keep in mind that king snakes have a very good food response. Mexican black king snakes, from what I've been told, and the reason partially that we got him was that Mexican black king snakes are a little bit more calm tempered and easier to handle. They don't move as fast. They usually I've seen people get bitten by these, but they usually just have more of a calm disposition, and especially if you get them as a baby like this and you handle them a lot, it'll be very, very good for when they grow up. As far as small children, these are really little starting out. A lot of colubrids, a lot of colubrids start out really small as babies like this. Corn snakes, I've seen corn snakes even smaller than this as babies. And so you just want to be mindful of that with small children, because you know small children can actually hurt animals like this, and they can actually kill them too. You don't want to be you don't want to leave your child alone with anything like a snake or any kind of animal, honestly, in my opinion. But you don't want to leave a child alone with something like this that they could easily hurt. You want to be supervising everything. I mean, if you get a snake anyway, please supervise your children. Don't leave your young children alone like that with a snake. And even some of the other snakes I have that are going to be really big one day, my boa constrictors and my reticulated pythons, even though my reticulated pythons are a dwarf and a super dwarf, they're still going to get pretty big. And my dwarf reticulated python is going to get bigger than my boa constrictors. So especially even as an adult, if you have a snake that gets really big like that, you could have some serious trouble if you're trying to handle them by yourself and you don't have anybody around to help you. So definitely for certain sizes and certain kinds of snakes, I do recommend having more than one person there. With a king snake, you want to be there, like I said, especially with little kids, because something can happen. A little kid can step on it or crush it or squeeze it or something like that, or drop it. But we'll get into the bigger snakes a little bit later. But as far as smaller snakes like corn snakes, king snakes, things like that, yeah, definitely it's a good beginner snake, but definitely be mindful. King snakes are hungry a lot. They can bite you. I'd always make sure you wash your hands, and if you've got any other snakes as pets too, make sure that you really wash your hands, because like I said, the king snake can smell that. But as long as you get them young like this and you handle them, or if you want to get an adult, you want to get a rescue, find an adult king snake that has been handled that's very docile. You'll still have to get it used to you and your family, but it'll be a little bit easier of a transition if you want a rescue that's already an adult, if you make sure that it has been handled by people before. One or two of the snakes I have, the only reason I had issues with them is because they were not handled. They were like a year old already when I got them. So yes, the Mexican black king snake is definitely a snake I recommend for beginner keepers, as long as you do your research and you are mindful of the fact that these guys like to eat. The next snake we're going to talk about is our 1-year-old boa constrictor imperator, Harley. She's a hypoharlequin boa. She's 1 year old and she is not full grown yet. In another year or two, she will be a lot bigger than this. Harley right now is in a 20 gallon. He's gonna get a really nice big PVC come this Christmas with a lot of our other snakes that are gonna get big. Female boa constrictors, she's not a true red tail, but she's a BCI. There's a difference between BCC and BCI, but BCI, she'll get, gosh, what, 7 to 9 feet, 7 to 10 feet? I don't remember, but the females can get pretty big compared to the males, because again, they're sexually dimorphic, like I was talking about earlier. But yeah, when she gets full grown, I won't be able to hold her without having Ramsey around, another person around, because boa constrictors get really big. If this is something that you're thinking about for a family pet snake, it's not a bad choice at all. Boa constrictors are awesome. You just have to get them it's better to get them as babies and work with them and get them used to you, so that by the time they do get really, really big, they know who you are and they're very hand tame. Sometimes you'll get a snake that just has an attitude and it doesn't like being handled. That does happen sometimes. I've seen full-grown boa constrictors like that, but so far none of the boa constrictors I have are like that. I have 5 boa constrictors. She's the oldest. The other ones are babies. She's still really young. I wouldn't consider her like a baby. I'd consider her like a juvenile. But all the other ones I have, they're completely fine. I've been working with them like I've been working with her. I went ahead and got her at a year old, so she's got a very good temperament. I'm not really sure if she was handled by people very much, but it appears that she's very used to me and Ramsey. So, and my dad's actually held her before too. So she's got so far a very good temperament. Like I said, it could change one day. And if you've got small children, they're not okay. I wouldn't not recommend them. There's not any snake that I really wouldn't recommend. It's just that you need to do your research and you need to be present when your kids are holding the snake. I would always, as the parent, be the one to get the snake out. And then as your children get older and they're not, little bitty kids, like once they start to get around 10 or older, you can start teaching them how to remove the snake from the enclosure to handle. There's a good tactic called hook training, tap training. You can look that up on YouTube. For a lot of bigger snakes like this that will get really big, it is good to do a hook training technique so that you can teach them when it's time to eat and when it's not. When you use the hook and you present the hook inside the enclosure and gently touch them on the head, it lets them know that it's not time to eat, that it's handling time, and the hook is metal. It doesn't register heat like your hand, so they won't mistake the hook for food like they could your hand. You always also want to make sure that you do wash your hands anytime you get any snake out so that you don't smell like anything. I have seen some situations where someone's child smelled like another animal, or they had something on their shirt and it caused the snake to actually bite their shirt, and sometimes bite them through the shirt. Like I said, they all have teeth. They are constrictors, so I would be mindful of that. You have to be very careful. You just have to do your research and you have to learn the animal, build a bond with the animal. Personally, for me, it's better to get them as babies and work with them. But if you're going to have them around small children, just please always be present, especially even if you're an adult. You don't ever need to be handling a boa constrictor that gets, pretty big, or like a reticulated python by yourself, or a Burmese python, anything like that gets really big. You want to have somebody, because boa constrictors are very strong and they're basically made of pure muscle. It's just they're very strong, so if you get one around your neck and you don't have anybody to help you, you could get choked out. You could become, unconscious from that. Also, whenever I have any snake around my neck, I usually only do ball pythons around my neck. But if I do a boa constrictor or anything like that, I'm always going to have one hand free and one hand underneath the body of the snake so that the snake is not completely wrapped around my neck, because that is just my opinion. I don't feel like when people have really big snakes, like boa constrictors, reticulated pythons, Burmese pythons, etc., that it's a very good idea to just let a really huge snake hang out around your neck without your hand under its body, or a way to ensure that it's not freely wrapped around your neck, because you could run into a problem just because of the simple fact that they're very strong snakes. So once again, boa constrictors, fantastic snake. Boa constrictors are going to be our main focal point when we breed. We are going to breed ball pythons too, but boa constrictors are going to be our main thing. So obviously we love boa constrictors here and we highly recommend them. You want to be present and teach your family, teach your kids how to handle them. And obviously never leave your child alone with any animal, let alone a really big snake. Okay, so this right here is Eden. She is our dwarf purple albino reticulated python. She's a little squirmy when I first get her out, so I apologize if you can't really see all of her in the frame. There we go. Wrap around my arm there. First of all, when it comes to dwarf and super dwarf reticulated pythons, I highly recommend, and most people highly recommend, and everybody pretty much highly recommends, Reach Out Reptiles. Garrett J. Hartle is one of the coolest people around. He knows everything there is to know about these animals. He specializes in dwarf and super dwarf retics, and he is the #1 go-to for these animals. We got Eden and Ripley, which you've probably seen him too. He's our super dwarf Anery Motley Tiger reticulated python. We got both of them from Reach Out Reptiles. They came together. And they are very amazing snakes to have. Obviously, she's a baby right now. One day she can get between 11 and 13 feet. So she's not going to get as big as a mainland, but she can get pretty darn big. She can get a lot bigger than our boa constrictors. So that's something to keep in mind if you're going to get a dwarf. Now, a lot of it comes down to the percentages of localities. If you want to learn more about that, I highly suggest going on the Reach Out Reptiles website and looking around, and also watching a lot of the YouTube videos. There's actually a really good video that Garrett does where he actually gets a lot of different snakes out, and he actually shows you how big they usually get around the average size for the different localities and percentages. So I highly recommend checking that out. With Eden here, we wanted one that got a pretty good size, but we didn't want one that was going to be like a mainland. So we decided on Eden, and then we really like the super dwarfs too, so we decided on Ripley, and Ripley's going to get between 7 and 9 feet. And also, just like a lot of the other snakes I've been talking about, they are sexually dimorphic, so the females usually are going to be bigger than the males. Now, she is under a year old right now. She's got a nice PVC enclosure coming that's going to be bigger, and it's going to be one that she's going to grow into. And then probably when she gets full grown, we might have to upgrade again. But she is definitely a snake that one day when she grows up, you have to have another person around. It's just a good idea. Just like with the boa constrictors. When I mentioned that, talking about Harley, you know, you want to just make sure that you don't have a problem. They have a really good food response too. A lot of times with Eden especially, and Ripley does this too, every single time you open the tank, they think something's up. Now, not every single time, but the majority of the time. And you can tell a lot by their body language when they are actually in food mode and when they are not. Like all the other snakes I mentioned, really good idea to wash your hands. Also, the hook training is another good idea. I've seen a lot of people with baby retics do target training with a red target. That's a really good option too, to kind of teach them when it's time to eat, when it's time to handle instead. And like the other, like the boa constrictor I talked about, you really want to get these as babies and work with them. And then, like I said, if you've got small kids, reticulated pythons are wonderful. But even with an adult, like I said, you want another person with you when they get full grown, because accidents can happen. They're just very strong snakes. I highly recommend reticulated pythons. They're amazing. They're one of the smartest snakes. If you do some research, you'll find out pretty quickly they are a very intelligent animal. They get to know their owners really well. They get, accustomed to certain people holding them and spending time with them. They're that smart, guys. They're beautiful snakes. A lot of the super dwarfs and dwarfs come in some pretty cool morphs now, because they've been able to get a lot of the mainland influence in there to be able to have some smaller sizes with these different morphs. So again, I would highly recommend Garrett J. Hartle over there at Reach Out Reptiles. He knows absolutely everything about these animals. He helped us pick Eden out. He helped us pick Ripley out. And the whole entire team over there is amazing. And I highly recommend, again, going to their YouTube channel to learn about these guys. Also, Clint's Reptiles, if you go to his YouTube channel, he also did a video recently about super dwarf and dwarf retics, and Garrett is actually on that video. So I would highly recommend going to Clint's Reptiles, that YouTube channel as well, and checking out that video. Okay, guys. So this is an example of about how big a fully grown ball python can get. This is a female. She's over 2,000 grams. Her name is Priya. Right now she's about as big as like a juvenile boa constrictor that's maybe 1 or 2 years old. This around small children, doable, but you need to be there. Just because look at how big she is. I mean, most ball pythons that you probably see are a lot smaller than this, because a lot of times when you go to the pet store, you're gonna see hatchlings, you're gonna see juveniles, you're not gonna see them be this big. Now she's about 4 to 4.5 feet right now. Females can get 5, sometimes I think close to 6 feet if I'm correct. Don't know where she's trying to go. But she's pretty big for a ball python. This is about breeding weight for a female ball python. So just keep in mind, this is how big they can get. They're great snakes. They're wonderful beginner pet snakes. Very good docile temperament usually. So the only time I've honestly had an issue with any ball pythons be defensive or have, you know, a different sort of like temperament where they don't seem to really like people, it's just because they are either a baby, because hatchlings can be a little bit nippy, or they are over a year old already when I've bought them and they were not handled by people. She's a great girl. She does hiss sometimes when I get her out because she's annoyed and doesn't want to come out. We haven't had her very long. She's already an adult too, so we don't really know what all went on with her before we had her. So, but she's very good once you get her out. She just kind of hisses sometimes. She's never struck at me, but sometimes she hisses like she's just annoyed and doesn't want to come out, which is just, it's another behavioral sign that they don't want you to mess with. But sometimes when I have to get her out and I have to change her tub and I have to clean her up and stuff like that, she does not want me to get her out and she's mad at me. So she'll hiss, but she's a very good girl. Now, if you get one of these around her neck, she can still squeeze pretty hard if she wants to. So I trust her, but I usually try to keep one hand on her just in case. And it's, I mean, you can hold one of these by yourself, you know, even when they're full grown. It's just you want to be mindful of the fact that they are constrictors and they can squeeze if they want to. But she's a really good girl. Now, if any of these bite you, a bite from her would probably hurt because she's full grown. Like I said, they got those recurved teeth. A bite from a hatchling, not that bad. I've never been bitten by any of my snakes, but it's important to know that with any animal you have, there is the chance that something could happen. It hasn't happened to me, but it could certainly happen to me in the future. So just keep that in mind. Of all the ones I've talked about, I think personally for me, ball pythons are going to be the one I recommend. And we will be breeding these, so we're hoping that Priya here ends up being our first mommy snake. And we've got the male that we're going to try to pair her with coming next week. He's her age, so. But we are very excited and we really hope we get some babies. So if you're in the market for a ball python, don't forget about us. Remember us, because we might have some babies here soon. But I would say, yes, they are constrictors. There's pretty much every snake I have is a constrictor. The king snake or the ball python out of the two would be good beginner snakes. I would also really like to recommend the corn snake. I don't have a corn snake, but that is another one that I would highly recommend. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that I've shown you enough variety of different snakes that you have some things you can choose from, some things you want to learn about, and I really hope that you change your mind about snakes. If you're scared of snakes, if you don't like them, I really hope that my videos are helping change that, because they are amazing. So amazing and so misunderstood, and that's another thing that I want to promote with my videos and my channel, is how amazing these animals are, how they shouldn't be feared, and how more people should love snakes.